Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Sports Buzz here on HBC TV 25. I'm Justin Barrientos. Thank you for joining us. And on the panel today, we have Jeff Theis.
Second time's a charm. Two shows in a row for me.
He thinks it's 1994 with that T-shirt.
Hell yeah.
Paul Van Beek from KWNO and Landon Evanson here from HBC. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the baseball playoffs, and we'll start out with the National League, even though as we tape, the American League wildcard game will be going on, so we'll talk about that next week. But who do you have coming out of the National League and why?
I think it's just hard to bet against the Cardinals. As much as I would like to say I think it could be the Dodgers because of Greinke and Kershaw, like we talked about, Kershaw really has not pitched well in the playoffs. He just hasn't. He hasn't pitched horribly, but he'll go out in 5 or 6 innings, has a bad inning, and then everything just blows up. And in the playoffs, that's all it takes. But the Cardinals, they bring in, they're the New England Patriots of Major League Baseball. Why do I feel like I'm repeating myself?
I don't know.
But they just bring in new guys every year, and they just beat up on people. And the fact that now Wainwright's coming in and he's an option out of the bullpen for me, they just become stronger. I just think that the Cardinals are the class of the National League until someone can knock them off.
I don't think it's the Cardinals' year this year. That they're coming in. They really haven't played well down the stretch this season, and they're beat up. They lost Carlos Martinez to an arm injury, and it's hard to bet against, as you said, the Dodgers, because now, instead of in years past where they've had Kershaw, where he's felt like he's had to go and win every game, that they've got Greinke, who's been the first or second best pitcher in the National League. And, oh, by the way, you also have Kershaw to go with them. So you've got two guys that, in a 7-game series, they're going to pitch almost every game. So that is a real advantage for them. I'd like to say the Cubs, being a homer, I think if the Cubs do beat Pittsburgh, they do have a chance to make a run, but I think perhaps their youth gets in the way this year. And I do think they're going to beat Pittsburgh with Arrieta on the mound, but I think it's hard to go against the Dodgers this year. The Mets, I think maybe their youth also might come and be a problem.
First of all, we have to say the baseball playoffs are one of the biggest crapshoots in sports. All the teams are relatively equal, and it's such a short sample size that anything can happen. Because last year, 2 wildcard teams made the World Series. But my head is telling me that I like the New York Metropolitans. I like their pitching, but the prophecy has already been foretold, as in Back to the Future. The 2015 World Series would be won by the Chicago Cubs. I can't argue with the future telling of Back to the Future.
But they're not going to Miami.
They can't beat Miami or sweep a 5-game series, but their general premise was right.
Okay, I'm going to go with the Dodgers because that's my team, and the Twins didn't make the playoffs.
My head says the Metropolitans, but it's the Cubs. That is my official pick.
All right, let's go to the American League then, and who do you have coming out of the American League?
The American League is a little more difficult, but I can't go against the Rangers and how they're playing right now. I think they're the most balanced team in terms of starters, bullpen, and lineup production. Just they've been playing so well. I don't. Anything could happen, obviously, in the playoffs, but the way the Rangers are playing, I can't go against them.
Everybody's overlooking the Royals at this point, even with what they did last year, just because they've kind of been slow in the second half. I don't necessarily think they're going to be coming out of the American League, but they're a team that now is being overlooked, even though throughout the year we thought they were going to be the best team in the American League. I think the way that Toronto's been hitting the baseball, they're going to be tough to beat because they're still going to have an ace in David Price. And who's going to slow them down pitching-wise? Now, the only problem is their bullpen going to be good enough in the postseason?
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I know I've been saying the Royals all year long, and I'll be the first person to admit after the Troy Tulowitzki, David Price trades, I still don't think those were the ideal things for the Blue Jays to do, but they've worked out for them. I just don't see how somebody's going to stop Toronto. That offense is just incredible, even though Burley probably isn't going to pitch. Like you said, David Price is a Cy Young winner. R.A. Dickey is a Cy Young winner, and even though the stats might not always back it up, I trust R.A. Dickey, and Stroman's back. So you've got those 3 starters. You have an unbelievable lineup. I just think that the Blue Jays is going to be like 93.
Well, I don't really have a horse in this race, so I think I'll just go with the Royals because they went last year. Yes, small markets stick together. That's what I said last year. All right, let's talk a little bit about
if Ty were here, I'm guessing he'd pick the Astros.
The Astros, right. But we don't know if they're still in it. So
they will beat the Yankees.
Let's hope so. All right, let's talk about the Minnesota Twins season. First 500 and above season since 2010. They were in it until the second to last game of the season when they were finally eliminated. What's your take on how the Twins did?
I think it was a very successful season. Paul Molitor proved to be a very competent manager. He hadn't had that type of experience before, but he came in and handled the team very well. Like we talked about, you and I went go watch many games, just the way he handled the pitching staff, the way he handled the bullpen. Glenn Perkins, he'll bring him in the 8th inning if need be. He was a little bit more aggressive offensively with running the bases, even though they probably could do that a little bit more. But I think, it was a situation like with the Astros and Twins, I think are both in the same boat where they both arrived a little earlier than people expected them to. Houston was able to get in the playoffs, the Twins didn't, but I think this is the beginning of a run of 4 or 5 years with the Twins. If they don't make the playoffs every year, are going to be very, very competitive. But Rosario's a stud.
Yes.
Sano's a stud. If Buxton turns out, this is going to be a very dangerous team.
Well, bringing Perkins in the 8th grade actually has hurt them down the stretch because he couldn't pitch him. But I think they do need to improve that bullpen, especially if Perkins is. I think Perkins will get back to where he was or close to it. But they do need to add some arms in that bullpen. They still could use a starter or two. I mean, they do have some help down in the minor leagues. But if you're thinking that this is a team that's going to compete immediately, they need to get a little help there and not necessarily go to the bargain bin like they have in the past.
Well, yeah, if in terms of looking into next year, just this team has some glaring holes. Like if they don't address, they're not going to win 83 games next year. Catcher, number 1. They're bottom 10 in ERA, last overall in strikeouts, 28th and on base. If those things continue, they're not gonna win 83 games, no matter kind of how things turn out. But I remember months and months ago when we sat here and gave what would be a successful Twin season. I said if the young players, they don't get hurt and they progress along, and look what happened. Buxton and Sano made the majors. Rosario was better than anybody expected. Tyler Duffy, rookie, came up and pitched very well. Jose Barrios in the minors, the pitcher of the year, and looks like a potential ace of the future. Trevor May had a good year. So outside of Alex Meyer, all their young players progressed along and did very well. So, yeah, just look, they got to address a few holes, but the kind of the core for the future looks pretty bright.
And the good news is Terry Ryan's one of the best general managers in baseball, so I have to imagine he sees the things that everyone else sees, and he is going to address them as best he can. I would imagine the team will be better next year.
I hope somehow they get rid of Blaine Boyer. He was just brutal out of the bullpen. So
batting practice.
Get rid of him. All right, let's take a break here on the Sports Buzz. When we come back, we'll talk football, both NFL and local. That's coming up here on TV 25.
From the very beginning, HBC has been a leader in advanced technology, community service, and customer care. We are proud of our local roots and hometown values. Dedicated to making a difference, we understand how much our communities benefit by having world-class technology at their fingertips, and having local team members that live in the neighborhoods we serve helps HBC to keep in touch with the needs of each community in a very personalized way. We care about each community, and we are here to stay. Call 888-474-9995 and start experiencing the HBC difference today.
Get an inside look at the Winona State football program with the Tom Sawyer Show on TV 25. Brought to you by Jefferson Pub and Grill. Host Justin Barrientos sits down with the Warriors head coach each week to break down last week's game and to look ahead at WSU's next opponent, as well as chat with Winona State players. Tune in at 4:30 p.m. on Thursdays, 6 p.m. on Fridays, 7 a.m. on Saturdays, and before every Warrior home game for the Tom Sawyer Show on HBC. Brought to you by Jefferson Pub and Grill.
Look at the brows on that. That's a hog, man.
Tune in for the Sports Buzz every Tuesday at 5:30 as a panel of local sports journalists tackle the hottest topics on everything from local high school and collegiate sports to regional discussion about the Twins, Brewers, Vikings, and Packers. With the Power Play Fantasy Football Challenge to the Rant of the Week and NFL Pick'em, the Sports Buzz is fast-paced and sure to entertain. That's new episodes of the Sports Buzz every Tuesday at 5:30 with replays only on HBC TV 25.
Join HBC Sports' Extra Point one-camera coverage of high school football and soccer throughout the fall, presented by Lewiston Auto. In addition to our Football Night Crew broadcasts, Extra Point will bring you 8 games from the gridiron and 9 games from the pitch. For the full slate of games, simply visit hbci.com/sports to find out when your team will be on the field. That's Extra Point coverage of HBC Sports presented by Lewiston Auto, all fall, only on TV 25.
And welcome back to the Sports Buzz. Let's talk a little NFL right now and the Minnesota Vikings. And the Vikings Came up short this week against the Broncos, but you know, we all, everybody except Jeff, picked them to lose to the Broncos. So you know, I thought it was a pretty good game for the Vikings.
Yeah, it was pretty much what I expected out of the game. I know I picked the Vikings, but that was kind of more, you know, that's more of a
going against
segment.
the grain.
But yeah, I expected, it was kind of what I expected. The Broncos kind of were limited by the Vikings offensively, and they had trouble moving the ball at times, and the Vikings offensively had trouble with that Broncos pass rush, and the Broncos kind of went all in to stop the run, and yeah, it was just at the end it got a little interesting there, where that 4th and 1 play was huge, and the Vikings got the score and ended up tying the game eventually. But yeah, to me, it was the ultimate Adrian Peterson giveth and taketh away, where he can have that 40-yard touchdown run, and then in the last play of the game, whiff on the block on T.J. Ward. And
Ward, he didn't even whiff; he didn't even go after.
Yeah, he just get that sack fumble. So yeah, it was nothing unexpected there.
Yeah, that's the big takeaway for me was how poorly they protected the quarterback. I mean, they were lucky to have a chance to win that ball game, considering they gave up 7 sacks in that ball game. The defense, you've really got to be very, very excited about the way the defense is playing right now. You know, they put that San Francisco game behind them, and since then they've been very, very good against some good offenses, and really limited the passing game for the most part. They intercepted Peyton Manning twice. So that's the positive. I guess the negative is the offensive line play, which we kind of expected because the Vikings are beat up on the offensive line.
About 20 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, I thought you'd take away from it. I mean, it was a solid game. I think the Vikings played better than a lot of people expected them to. I mean, I know Denver's not the same team they've been in the last few years, but they went up there and they did have success offensively, even though there were protection issues. They did play well defensively. I just think it's a good sign for the direction that the Vikings are moving in.
All right, let's talk about the Green Bay Packers. They handled San Francisco like we thought they would.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised, actually, that they didn't score as much. I heard Bill Michaels on the radio speculating that perhaps because they were on short rest, having played on Monday night, that they would just, they ran the ball a little bit more, just kind of run clock and get out of there. But I think the most important thing taken away from this with the Packers the last few weeks is the defense. I mean, granted, you're going up against the Chiefs. Alex Smith is not a premier quarterback. We know that, but they do have Jamal Charles. San Francisco has their own issues. We understand that. But you go out there and you beat up on the teams you should beat up on. Defensively, has always been the concern for the Packers, and they're really getting after it. They're being more aggressive. They're blitzing a little bit more. They're starting to play some dominant football, Dom Capers kind of football. So the defense is going to be a factor along with the offense, even though they don't have Jordy Nelson. I mean, I think it's just very clear that NFC North is their division. And at this point, the way Seattle's playing, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Packers get home field.
That's kind of what I said a couple weeks ago. That I thought that the Packers were the favorites in the NFC, and they haven't done anything to cause me to change my mind. And that's what I was going to mention is the defense. Even though the offense gets all the glory, but it's been the defense that's really played well. Obviously, it was against San Francisco, but they played well against the Chiefs, held down Marshawn Lynch when they played Seattle. So if the defense continues to play like it is, they're going to win the NFC North and probably have home field advantage.
If we had dumpster fire of the week this week, it would potentially be San Francisco. But in terms of that game, yeah, the Packers' offense, as Landon said, you would have expected them to score more points. They were good on both opening possessions of each half, but outside of that, it was pretty inconsistent. But to be fair, you're not going to play your best game every week, and no team runs it up every week and plays their best. And
I think the Patriots run it up every week.
Well, to be fair, they don't. Anyway, there are going to be weeks where you don't play your best, and the Packers still won by 2 touchdowns and not playing their best. So the old phrase, a win's a win, but I don't always believe that sometimes. But when it's with a team as good as the Packers, to avoid a loss against a potential trap game like this is a good one. Let's
go to local football, and we have 2 games on football night in HBC this week. Starting off on Thursday, Kingsland at Lewiston Altura. Lewiston Altura 7-0, Kingsland 0-7.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably going to be a one-sided game, but it's Lewiston has a very, very good team this year, and they're exciting to watch. I think the thing that's most impressive to me is the stable of running backs. I mean, having 5 running backs that are all 220 yards or higher. They have 4 players with totals over 300 yards. So it's the offensive line is just incredibly dominant. No matter who they're putting back there, they're being productive. I think when you keep looking at the stats week after week, though, I think Lewiston's defense gets overlooked a little bit. And granted, it's a lot of two-way players and whatnot, but at the same time, you're looking at it, they've had 4 games where they've given us 7 points or less. They've had 2 shutouts. I mean, they're not just going out and winning games, they are blowing people out of the water. Last week they won 21-14. I think that's just like an aberration. I mean, they get after it and they beat up on people.
Well, I don't think it was an aberration. I think it's good use, a quality team, and they finally faced it.
I mean the score.
Anyways, but this game is going to get ugly, and it's going to get ugly fast. Kingsland has lost 32 straight games heading into this matchup. For Lewiston, it's all about getting out of this game healthy and getting ready for the playoffs, because they're gonna have a chance to make a run, maybe get all the way to face Caledonia in the section final. You talked about their stable running backs. That's the way they play. They want to have misdirection. They don't want you to know who is getting the football. They aren't a one-back team where they're going to give it to a guy 30 times. They want to spread things around, and that's what makes them good.
From what I understand, they like the dive play, but that's just between us. But anyway, all I'll have to say about this is Lewiston's averaging 41 points a game. Kingsland's 0-7. Just don't get anybody injured.
All right, our Friday game, though, is the big Southeast Blue Conference title game. Winona High taking on Mankato West. Both teams are 7-0, Jeff.
Well, yeah, I was curious to see Winona last week against Mankato East. Alrighty then.
I apologize.
Ruining my hot take. But I was curious to see Winona against Mankato East last week, and they didn't disappoint. Just doing well on both sides of the ball, just dominating. And it looks like clearly they're getting better as the season goes on here. I expect to see a good game here in the battle for the Big Nine Conference. I don't care what it's called now.
Well, last week's game against Mankato East could have been a little bit different had the Mankato East not lost their star running back, 1,000-yard rusher in the first play of the game. And if you remember back, it was 14-7 at the half. Winona took advantage of this, or took control in the second half. They actually had control yardage-wise throughout the first half, and Mankato East only scored an interception return for a touchdown. But in heading into the Mankato West game, Mankato West is a team that has traditionally been the powerhouse in the former Big Nine Conference. They're defending state champions. They're going to be they're really confident coming in, but this is a little different team than they've had in the past. They run it a little bit more than they have in the past. Normally, they're a team that throws it all around. Their quarterback, a very good runner, so they're going to be running a little bit more than usual, but still can pass the football. And in talking to their coach, Mark Ash, he says their defense has been excellent this season. So it's obviously going to be a very, very tough matchup, but this should really show us how good Winona is.
We're out of time.
All right.
Don't forget about Winona. They gotta pick up that blitz.
All right, we're going to take a break here on the Sports Buzz, and when we come back, we'll do our power play and our NFL pick'em. That's coming up right after this.
We chose HBC because they're a local company. They have a big audience in Winona, which is the geographic group that we're looking for. Mel is very easy to work with. She's genuinely concerned about how our money is being spent, and she does everything she can to make sure we get the most for our money. She takes care of us. So whenever there's a problem, which is rarely, I know that I can go to her and she's going to take care of it.
To see how HBC Advertising can help your company, call Melanie at 507-474-5802.
Tune in for the Sports Buzz every Tuesday at 5:30 as a panel of local sports journalists tackle the hottest topics on everything from local high school and collegiate sports to regional discussion about the Twins, Brewers, Vikings, and Packers. With the Power Play Fantasy Football Challenge to the Rant of the Week and NFL Pick'em, the Sports Buzz is fast-paced and sure to entertain. That's new episodes of the Sports Buzz every Tuesday at 5:30 with replays only on HBC TV 25. Want the latest news on St. Mary's University athletics? Watch the Cardinals Nest on HBC TV 25. Dean Beckman and SMU Sports Information Director Donnie Netto will talk about the past week in Cardinal athletics, highlighting the best in each Cardinal sports team. Player and coach guests will add their stories and insight each week with new shows Thursdays at 5 p.m. and replays Fridays at 6:30 p.m. and Saturdays at 7:30 a.m. on HBC TV 25.
At HBC, we know it's often the little details that the customer will remember, and that's why we are committed to being attentive in all facets of our business. We strive to provide industry-leading products and services, all while providing unparalleled personal care. HBC's customer service and technical support are provided locally within each service market and are available by phone or by visiting the local offices. Call 474-9995 and start experiencing the HBC difference today.
Join HBC Sports' Extra Point one-camera coverage of high school football and soccer throughout the fall, presented by Lewiston Auto. In addition to our Football Night Crew broadcasts, Extra Point will bring you 8 games from the gridiron and 9 games from the pitch. For the full slate of games, simply visit hbci.com/sports to find out when your team will be on the field. That's Extra Point coverage of HBC Sports presented by Lewiston Auto, all fall, only on TV 25.
And welcome back to the Sports Buzz here on TV 25. And unfortunately, I have to give this up this week. The power play, my 1-week reign at the top comes to an end, and Paul is the champion this week.
There's some poor scores there this week.
Yeah, 63.84 is the one that wins.
The one guy I drafted was on bye, so I'm not taking any blame for this.
All right, so Paul, you have the option to trade, and you're going to trade tight ends?
Oh, yeah, I would like Gronkowski for a week. That would be fantastic.
So who am I getting?
You're getting Jimmy Graham.
And it's we.
Yeah, right, the team of Jeff and Landon.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's
Gronkowski's mine. The rest of the team you can claim.
All right, and then that means that Ty will be drawing from the hat, although Landon will have to do it. This is running back.
I didn't want him to have Jamal Charles against the Bears defense.
All right, so here we go.
He's going to get Darren Sproles.
Oh.
Darren Sproles.
Okay. All right, now the overall, Ty still leads the overall by about 4 points over me, and then Theis and Landon are about 277, so they're about 9 points behind that. So it's a tight race in the overall. All right, let's move on to our NFL picks, and the Vikings are on a bye week, so I don't get to pick the Vikings this week. So
you didn't pick them last week.
I didn't pick them last week either, and I was right. I got the win on that. I was 4-1 last week, as was Patrick, Landon, and Paul, and Jeff, you were 2-3.
Gosh darn Vikings.
Yeah, okay, let's go.
Pittsburgh. I picked the dumpster fire Dolphins.
Seattle at Cincinnati is our first game that we're picking, and boy, I can't go with Seattle. I don't know. I just really wasn't impressed with them against Detroit, so I'm going to have to pick Cincinnati in this one.
Yeah, no, they're not playing terribly well. I mean, they get some wins, but I mean, they still have a little ways to go there. I mean, they're definitely getting better. I mean, they're getting to where they want to go. But the Bengals, I think, a lot of people are very surprised. Yes, but the Bengals have a good team. They got a lot of talent. So, I definitely have to take the Bengals at home, as does Patrick.
Okay.
Quietly, Cincinnati is playing some of the best football in the entire NFL, and including that Andy Dalton, which everybody jokes about Andy Dalton. We're going to find out how much Andy Dalton has turned the corner this week against Seattle, but I will take Cincinnati at home.
Cincinnati's not going undefeated. I think Seattle will play better.
Anyone says that.
I know, but I think this is the week Cincinnati slips up. I'll take the Hawks.
All right, this is an interesting one. Jacksonville at Tampa Bay. Okay, Jacksonville.
I took it just because it's difficult. I'm taking Jacksonville. Patrick's taking Tampa Bay.
Wow.
Oh, wow. This game makes me want to puke. I'll take Jacksonville.
So same with all the people in Florida. It makes them want to puke. Between those two and the Dolphins, man, this is terrible. But when the Jaguars are, for some reason, one of my favorite teams to back, so I'll take the Bortles, T.J. Yeldon combo to win.
All right.
Wow.
St. Louis at Green Bay. How about this? I'm going to pick the Packers for 2 weeks
in a row. Oh, my goodness gracious.
They're only a 9-point favorite. Way to go out on a limb.
To the surprise of no one, Patrick's taking Green Bay. I'm taking Green Bay. We're all taking Green Bay.
Hey, St. Louis did knock off an undefeated team last week on the road in Arizona.
So you're picking St.
No,
Louis.
I'll still take Green Bay, but
if St. Louis was playing a team in their division, I might take the Rams, but they stink against teams not in their division. I'll take Green Bay.
All right, New England at Dallas is the next one, and this one could be a bloodbath. I think New England all the way.
Well, I think it'll be closer than people think. I mean, Dallas is hanging in there pretty well. I mean, they found a very interesting way to drop the game against the Saints, but
Castle might be the quarterback in this one if they drop Whedon.
I don't think Whedon's
again, to the
that
surprise
bad.
of no one, Patrick takes New England. I'm taking New England.
I'll take New England.
I don't think Brandon Whedon's played that bad.
No, he's played well.
He's played solid, and then Jerry Jones comes out and says he was limited. It's like, what do you expect from him when you brought him in? But he's played all right. He hasn't. I wouldn't say he's hurt them too much. Like,
so since everybody's taking New England, you're taking?
No, I'm taking New England because I'm not that stupid.
All right, and then the last one, the Monday night game, is Pittsburgh at San Diego. I still don't really like what I've seen from Pittsburgh, although they did hang in there this week. I'm still going to pick San Diego in this one.
Yeah, Patrick's taking San Diego, and I, too, in the spirit of Stan Humphries, I'm taking the Bolts.
San Diego hasn't really impressed me much. I think Pittsburgh will be better with Michael Vick, and really they're built around Le'Veon Bell. However, I'll have to take San Diego at home, but it wouldn't surprise me to see Pittsburgh win on the road.
San Diego, discovered by the Germans. I think you know what it means, but I'll.
And I'm glad you're going to just assume we do.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think we could get that on the show.
No.
But I'll take San Diego.
All right. We do have a little bit of time left, so let's go back to the Minnesota Twins. We thought we could talk a little bit more about the Twins. So do we want to go with the crazy theory that I heard, or do you want to talk more about the
Well,
Twins
no,
in
just
general?
we can just stem off your theory and go ahead.
Okay, so the crazy theory that I heard, which actually I think was a writer from the Rochester Post-Bulletin, said that because Joe Mauer hasn't been producing at first base and he hasn't brought his bat back, that they should move him to designated hitter, and because Miguel Sano is too young to be just a designated hitter, put him at first base, and then also have Joe Mauer be the backup catcher to spell Kurt Suzuki on off days, so that would get him back behind the plate because obviously his legs didn't get stronger when he was at first base. So
First off, Joe Mauer's never catching again. He got out from behind the plate because he had the concussion issue, so that's never going to happen. That's flawed in that logic, number one. And number two, Miguel Sano playing the field is a good idea because if you have a 22-year-old who openly has said he wants to play the field, you might want to get him in there. And in terms of that, I think the Twins are going to be shopping Trevor Plouffe this winter to try and make that happen, because the elephant in the room now is Joe Mauer and how they're going to go around with him, because if you want Sano and Plouffe, and if he's around to play the field, you're going to have to find a way to make that work.
I think the biggest thing with that is, I mean, unfortunately, as much as you would like it to be Mauer, the odd man out with that contract and the way he plays now, that's not going to happen. But I mean, ideally, I think, Kenneth Vargas had very productive at the time he was up last season. This year, it was a little more on the downside, but I think there's a lot of upside with him. I think you can get a lot of home runs, a lot of doubles, a lot of production. You're going to want to get him in the lineup, and the only way to do that is for him to be the designated hitter, because Mauer is not going to move off of first base, and Mauer's numbers aren't going to get any better if he's DHing. I mean, that's just foolish to even think that. I mean, Mauer's not the same hitter he used to be. He can still be productive in spots. I mean, we saw, what was it, 43 games?
43 games.
43 games in a row where he reached base. I mean, so he doesn't draw walks or hit for the kind of average he used to, but he still does well enough.
Yeah, he's still productive enough where he's still like a 340 on base, which is not terrible.
And not only that, he is a very good first baseman. I mean,
he's got range.
He's carried over that athleticism and that ability with the glove. He's doing it at first base. I think we've all seen Kenneth Vargas. I mean, that's just not going to be the case. So, if you have a solid first baseman who can play the position well, I mean, it's great to have a guy like Prince Fielder, but he's something of a butcher defensively. So you want somebody who can make your defense better at first base if possible. Vargas certainly would not do that.
About 30 seconds left.
I agree that that Joe Mauer needs to stay at first base, and if they think that Kenneth Vargas is as a guy that is a major league player, then they've got to move Trevor Plouffe and move Sano over to third base.
And you're going to get value. I mean, Plouffe, you're going to get something back for him. He's proven to be a good player.
I got to make it on the TV record now.
Third base,
Trevor
right?
Plouffe, you sign him to an extension, keep him around.
I actually agree with that.
I don't want to see Plouffe go, but he would be the odd man out because of Mauer's contract.
True.
Yeah,
that's true. All right. Well, thank you for joining us here on the Sports Buzz. We'll see you next week here on TV 25.